Yeah, baby, let's go! We already made one video talking about this guy and the idea of him getting traded to the Vancouver Canucks. Oh, is that a good idea? Should Patrik Allvin go out there and help his divisional rival Edmonton Oilers squad from their cap offer sheet shenanigans? I think a lot of people in the comment section kind of had the same reaction that I did. No! Patrik Allvin, stay away, why would you do that? But in this video, what I wanted to do was talk about the same guy, talk about the same idea, talk about the same sort of trade scenario, but kind of switch up the teams a little bit. Let's head over to an article on HabsFanatics.com that goes out there and proposes a potential panic trade involving Brett Kulak. It could turn into a 4-for-1 deal for Kent Hughes and the Montreal Canadiens. This article was published yesterday on August 17th by Elias Adame, and I'll be clear here, if there is some sort of a Brett Kulak trade from the time I'm recording this audio to the time this video is public on YouTube, then okay, I'm gonna take the L on that. It's happened before. I'm not really too scared of anything like that nowadays. But the article goes out there and brings up the same idea that had been tossed out there by Bruce Garriock a few days ago. How the Edmonton Oilers, in a desperate attempt to keep some of their guys that just got offer sheeted by the St. Louis Blues, could be interested in moving some of their defensemen. Cody Ceci comes to mind, and so does Brett Kulak, a name that has links to the Montreal Canadiens because he quite literally was a Hab in the past. Let's go out there and read what Adame writes about in this article before continuing. Kent Hughes and the Montreal Canadiens are among the few organizations that are currently able to quickly assist the Edmonton Oilers. And so, if you wanted to talk about a Brett Kulak trade, could you imagine if Kent Hughes acquires Brett Kulak for free and then retrades him to another team as he did with Jeff Petrie last year? He could effectively double dip on the Edmonton Oilers via a trade. Why? Let's remember that it was the same Kent Hughes who traded Kulak to Edmonton in 2022, and it turned out to be quite a deal. And this is illuminated when you revisit that original trade in 2022. The Oilers received Brett Kulak, and the Canadiens received William Lagesson, a 2022 second-round pick which became Lane Hudson, and a 2024 seventh-round pick. However, if Kent Hughes were to go back and acquire Brett Kulak from Edmonton and get paid to do so, this double transaction would be great for the Montreal Canadiens. Now, this is just a very basic idea. The article doesn't really expand on more beyond that. It just kind of says, hey, this would be cool. And I'm making this video to say that it would be cool, man. Imagine the legacy behind this. Kent Hughes not only getting a guy who was a former Hab and a pretty well-liked one, I'd say, at that, right? Brett Kulak wasn't really ever terrible with the Montreal Canadiens. He was just kind of okay. He was a guy. He was a defenseman, middle pairing guy that got maybe a little bit more minutes than he should have with the Canadiens, but that's because the team was kind of meh when he was on the squad. He didn't end up participating in the Canadiens' long Stanley Cup Finals run in 2022 because he got traded to Edmonton in that season. But Brett Kulak, for the most part, was a pretty alright guy in Montreal. Two-way capable guy, solid defensively, and eventually his role in Edmonton was rounded out by a 20-point season in 82 games played in 2022-2023. He actually did start to get a few more points here and there, and in the 2024 playoffs, he had 8 points in 25 games heading over to the finals, including 3 assists in all the games against Florida. So Brett Kulak, at 30 years old, I don't want to say like he's as meh as he used to be. You could honestly debate he's even better than he was. And for $2.something million, 2.75 till the end of 2025-2026, he certainly is a player that I think is worth thinking about if you're trying to bolster up your defense core and trying to make your team just a tad better. But for the Montreal Canadiens, you could very well say, hey, they don't really need a guy like Kulak on their team. They don't really need this extra left-handed defenseman because they have so many already. So why not do the Jeff Petrie thing? Acquire this guy because the team that's trading him away wants to free up some space, and then just flip Kulak right away, either at the beginning of the season, or maybe even play him a little bit and trade him at the deadline as a rental for 1 year, that would seem like a pretty reasonable way to assess things, and Montreal could help out Edmonton in this respect because they're one of the only teams that is so loosey-goosey in terms of the expectations, and their cap structure is a little bit more flexible than most other NHL teams, that they could considerably make this kind of a trade work. If you go over to Puckpedia.com, Montreal is in the middle of the pack there. They have about $5 million in cap space at the time of recording this audio, so they definitely would have the means to get a guy like Brett Kulak for free. Brett Kulak and a third or a second for future considerations. They could make this happen and then quickly trade Kulak away to another team, or even just play him and wait until the trade deadline to trade him then. Like, this could be a very good opportunity for the Canadiens to cash in twice on the existence and the profile of Brett Kulak. It's kind of giving me Sean Monahan vibes in a way. Just this idea as a whole. Kent Hughes acknowledging that a team is in a vulnerable spot and they're desperate to get rid of their guys, and they might be willing to pay a price to do so. So Hughes is like, hey, give him to us. We'll take on a second, we'll take on a first, and we'll get this guy off your hands. You could continue with your whatever it is that you want to do, and we'll just play out the season with this guy, or we'll let him go to the trade deadline, and then we'll flip him again. Like, there is an opportunity here for Kent Hughes to take advantage of. And for Brett Kulak to be the name involved, honestly, I do like this idea a lot, even if the Canadiens decided by some force of nature to, let's say, trade for Kulak and then actually play him. It would have a nice little legacy element to it that I think Canadiens fans would find pretty interesting. And of course, you know, Brett Kulak is a fine NHL defenseman. He'll be all right, and you could debate that if he's playing more minutes than, let's just say, maybe a Jordan Harris or a Jayden Struble, he would be an upgrade over any of those guys. At least right now, maybe long term, it's not really projected to be that way. But when you think about the roles, the guys that are already on the team, Cayden, of course, young guy, defensively minded guy, big minutes guy. You've got Lane Hudson, young guy, offensive guy. You might want to shelter his minutes a little bit. There could be some usage out of a guy like Brett Kulak if you wanted to get more stability on your other defensemen in the left side. So this is an interesting idea from both points of views for the Montreal Canadiens. Either you're thinking about Kulak getting acquired by the Habs and actually played, or if you're thinking about acquiring him and then trading him right away afterwards, it's a pretty good opportunity for the Montreal Canadiens, and of course, the legacy of having him being a former Hab already who got sent over to Edmonton in a really stacked trade back in the day. It kind of makes this whole thing a lot more sweet, right? So if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about this entire idea highlighted on HabsFanatics.com? The article will be linked in the description talking about Brett Kulak and him potentially being a Canadiens target. Does this happen, yay or nay? Or if it's not even Kulak, what do you think about Cody Ceci? We didn't talk about him in this entire video, but I do feel like Kulak is the more fun name to discuss in this kind of a context. Either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think is a trade for Kulak that would get things done, and what's a trade that you would want to see happen? Do you think this is even a good idea for the Canadiens? Should Kent Hughes just focus on the guys that he has already? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.